Sri Lanka, an island nation in South Asia, often called the Pearl of the Indian Ocean. And the moment you arrive, you understand why. Golden beaches that seem endless, lush green tea fields rolling across the hills, and ancient ruins whispering stories from thousands of years ago. Traveling here feels authentic and alive. The buses are full of local energy. The food bursts with spices and flavor, and around every corner there's something new to discover. And the people. Honestly, some of the kindest I've ever met in all my travels. Smiles from strangers, kids waving from the roadside, and locals ready to help without expecting anything in return. Sri Lanka surprised me in the best ways, and in this video, I want to help you see why and maybe inspire you to plan your own adventure.
Hi everyone! Welcome back to my channel. It's been a little while since my last upload. I know in that video I said I'll keep uploading while traveling, but honestly, it was tougher than I expected because I was also working full-time on the road. I just got back from an incredible one-month trip around Sri Lanka, and after that, I spent 10 days in the Maldives. I traveled solo and mostly by public bus in Sri Lanka. If you follow me on Instagram, you've probably seen me mention that I'll be sharing budget-friendly and practical guides about these amazing places. So here it is. In this video, I'm sharing a complete guide for first-timers, especially if you're traveling solo like me. I'll cover visas, transport, food costs, safety, my itinerary, and some tips I picked up along the way. And just so you know, here's my upload plan moving forward. So on Tuesdays, I'll be posting my Sri Lanka and Maldives series, and on Saturdays, it will be more videos from my Europe trip last year. Alright, let's get started.
Most international travelers arrive via Bandaranaike International Airport in Colombo. If you are from the Philippines like me, there is no direct flight from Naiya. I flew to Kuala Lumpur first, then from there to Colombo with AirAsia. The flight from KL to Colombo was less than 4 hours. Most nationalities can apply for an electronic travel authorization online before arrival. It's normally $50 for tourists and valid for 30 days. But just recently, Sri Lanka announced that travelers from 40 countries, including the UK, USA, UAE, and India, are now eligible for free visas to boost tourism. If your country is not on the visa-free list, you can apply for an electronic travel authorization online before your trip through the official website www.eta.gov.la. I got my ETA less than 10 minutes after sending my application. I printed a copy of my ETA approval just in case, but at immigration, they only checked my passport. In the ETA approval email, there was a link for an online arrival card. When I clicked it, it wasn't working and I didn't bother with it anymore. They never asked for an arrival card at immigration, so don't worry about that part. Just make sure you have your ETA. You can get a visa on arrival, but I suggest getting an ETA instead. That's one less thing to stress about when you land in Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka uses the Sri Lankan rupee. When I was there in June, 1 Philippine peso was about 5.26 rupees while $1 was about 300 rupees. The easiest way to get cash is by withdrawing from ATMs. They're everywhere, in cities, tourist areas, and even at the airport. Personally, I never exchanged cash. I just withdrew from ATMs whenever I needed money. But if you prefer, there are also money changers both at the airport and in major towns. In Sri Lanka, cash is still king. Some places like bigger restaurants and supermarkets accept cards, but for tuk-tuks, buses, small eateries, and even many accommodations, cash is the only option. For example, I booked all my stays through booking.com, but most properties don't offer a pay in advance option. That means you can't pay online with your card. You pay in cash on arrival. If you're using the Pick Me Up for rides, you can link your card to the app and pay that way, which is super convenient. Getting connected is easy. Buy a local SIM at the airport before you leave. I chose Dialog as it is known to have the best coverage. I got the 20 gig anytime data with local calls and texts for 1,399 rupees. I work remotely while traveling and I never had problems with the Wi-Fi in any accommodations. The only time I struggled was in Ella during a Teams meeting, but my Dialog data saved me. I stayed in Sri Lanka from June 6 to July 3 and the 20 gig was more than enough. If you are a heavy user, you can always top up. There are different ways to get out of the airport. You can take a taxi, airport bus, or book a ride through apps like Uber or PickMe, their local version of Grab. I used PickMe and instead of booking a car, I booked a tuk-tuk because it was cheaper. I stayed in Negombo instead of Colombo because it's closer to the airport. The cost of my tuk-tuk from the airport to my accommodation was 700 Sri Lankan rupees, which is around $2.3. One thing to note, tuk-tuks are not allowed inside the airport, so I had to walk a bit until I got outside, which is not far at all. There are many ways to get around depending on your style. You can rent a tuk-tuk or motorbike if you have a driver's license and are comfortable driving. I met a Dutch couple traveling with their 3-year-old daughter in a tuk-tuk. If you don't drive like me, you have plenty of options. For short distances, you can hail a tuk-tuk, but in big cities, I recommend using PickMe to book a tuk-tuk. It's way cheaper than flagging one down the road, and you'll see the fare up front. For long distances, the cheapest way is the public bus. The first time I tried, it was from Negombo to Tambula, and I was quite overwhelmed. The drivers drive really fast, the music is loud, but through time, I actually enjoyed riding it and preferred it over aircon buses and private cars. I remember chatting with a Filipino guy I met at a bus stop in Ella. He asked what it's like taking the public bus and I said, it's a different kind of adventure, but I love it. The music is so lively, it makes you want to dance, and the locals are so kind. On my 5-hour bus ride from Ella to Mirisa, the bus was full when I boarded, so I stood for the first 2 hours with my bags. A lady beside me offered the space in front of her to keep my bag safe. Back home in the Philippines, I avoided buses in Metro Manila if I can because of stories of pickpockets. But in Sri Lanka, that wasn't something I was worried about. I stayed careful but I never had any bad experience. A note though, I never tried the buses in Colombo City itself, so I can't speak for those. I've read some comments from local girls on TikTok saying they've experienced harassment in Colombo buses, so just be aware. Another option to get around Sri Lanka is by train. The most famous is the Kandy to Ella route, often called one of the most scenic train rides in the world. It's very popular, so reserved seats sell out quickly. If you'd like to experience it, I suggest not doing the whole Kandy to Ella stretch because it's a long 6 to 7 hour ride. Instead, ride the most scenic part like I did from Nanu Oya to Ella. If I could do it again, I'd ride until Badula to also see the 9 Arches Bridge and the Demodara Loop. Some travelers also recommend going in reverse, starting from Badula as it is less crowded. Another option if you want comfort and flexibility and you have the budget is you can hire a private driver. But as a solo traveler, I don't recommend doing this on your own. I've read stories in Sri Lanka backpacking groups about solo girls being harassed or scammed by drivers. A better option is to join Facebook groups and look for people to share a car with. In places like Ella, some accommodations also help arrange shared transport. I think that any time is a good time to visit Sri Lanka. It has 2 monsoon seasons that affect different parts of Sri Lanka alternating, so it depends on where you plan to go. If you're planning to visit the south or west, like Colombo, Gal, Mirisa, the best time is December to March, while in the north and east, like Trincomalee, Jaffna, and Arugam Bay, best time is May to September. I went to Sri Lanka in June because this was my birthday trip and I planned my route such that I could avoid rains. My route was Negombo, Sigiriya, Habarana, with a day trip to Polonnaruwa, then Trincomalee, Anuradhapura, Wilpatu. It is where I spent my birthday at the big game camp, Wilpatu, Dambula, Kandy, Nuwara Elia, Ella with a day trip to Haputale, then Mirisa with a day trip to Gal, and finally, Colombo. During my 4-week stay in Sri Lanka, I only experienced rain for about an hour in Anuradhapura, and in Nuwara Elia, it was longer, but I only stayed there for a night. It never rained in Mirisa while I was there, although it was supposed to be raining there. but the sea was rough. So June-July isn't ideal if your focus is beach swimming in the south. In Ella, a tea plantation guide told me June to August is actually the dry season there, which is perfect if you want to visit the plantations or do hikes. Overall, I'd say June is a good time to visit, especially if you're exploring different regions like I did. Sri Lanka has accommodations for every budget. Because I work online and accommodations are so affordable, I stayed in private rooms the whole time. So I will show you some of the places I stayed at and their prices. So this was my room in Habarana where I stayed for 2 nights. I paid less than $13 per night, and for that price, it was such a great deal. The room was spacious, super clean, and the bed was really comfortable. At first, I was wondering why there was no remote for the aircon. Then I realized I had actually booked the non-AC room. It did come with a fan, which was okay, but honestly, I think I would have slept better with the AC on. If you want the air-conditioned room, it's just around $5 more, which is still very affordable. Also, my booking included a delicious breakfast, which made it even more worth it. Next is my accommodation in Trincomalee. I originally booked for 3 nights but ended up extending for one more because I like Trincomalee so much. I paid 3,750 rupees per night, which is less than $13. It was an air-conditioned room but it also had a fan. It was actually cool enough even without using the AC. The room was spacious, clean, and just a short walk to Upo Valley Beach, which made it a perfect base for a chill stay. This was my room in Anuradhapura where I stayed for one night. It was an AC room that also came with a fan, TV, and a minibar, and I paid less than $13 for the night. It was just a 10-minute walk from the bus station, and like the other places I stayed at, the room was spacious, super clean, and the bed was really comfortable. Next is my tent at Big Game Camp Wilpa 2 where I spent my birthday. I decided to splurge a little because, well, birthday treat. I paid $200 and that already included a half-day private safari, dinner, and breakfast. The bed was cozy and relaxing, and even though it only had a fan, the tent stayed nice and cool throughout my stay. It was such a unique and memorable experience, definitely one of the highlights of my trip. This is where I stayed in Kandy. And aside from the big game camp, it was actually the most expensive place I booked. It cost 10,000 rupees per night, but Kandy is a big city, so accommodations here are generally a bit pricier. The room had a TV and the bed was super soft and cozy. It was a really nice and chill place, and the free Sri Lankan breakfast was one of the best I had on this trip. Alright, let's talk about one of my favorite parts of the trip, Sri Lankan food. During my month in the country, I ate Sri Lankan food almost every day and I loved it. The only exceptions were when I got curious and tried Pizza Hut, KFC, and Burger King just to see what the menus were like. And actually, what makes fast food in Sri Lanka different from what we have back in the Philippines is that the rice that comes with their chicken meals is biryani. But most of the time, I stuck to local food, and if it's your first time in Sri Lanka, here are some of the most common dishes you'll see in restaurants and why you should definitely give them a try. First is the rice and curry. This is the most common local meal usually served with a main curry like chicken, fish, or egg, and a few vegetable side dishes. It is flavorful, filling, and often spicy. Next is kotu. Koto is chopped up roti, stir-fried with egg, vegetables, or meat. It is noisy, tasty, and a must-try. Next is the dal curry, a comforting lentil curry that's everywhere. Typically eaten with rice or roti, fried rice, and fried noodles. These are super common all over Sri Lanka and are usually available with chicken, egg, vegetables, or a mix of everything. One thing I found interesting is that fried noodles often come with ketchup or tomato sauce. I wasn't sure at first, but after trying it, it actually tasted pretty good. Deviled dishes. These are bold, sweet, and spicy stir fries that you'll see on almost every menu. You can get deviled chicken, prawns, or cuttlefish, usually served with rice or fried rice. Hoppers. These are bowl-shaped pancakes made with fermented rice flour and coconut milk. String hoppers are soft steamed rice noodle discs that are usually served for breakfast or dinner. They're super light but filling, and you'll often get them with dal curry and coconut sambal. I have to mention my absolute favorite Sri Lankan dish, lamp rice. It's a Dutch burger-influenced dish made of rice, mixed meat curry, sambal, eggplant, and egg, all wrapped in a banana leaf and steamed together. The flavors just blend so beautifully. You'll also see a lot of short eats around Sri Lanka. That's what they call savory snacks sold in bakeries, cafes, and even on the street. One of the most common is the samosa, usually filled with spicy potatoes, veggies, or even fish. They are cheap, super flavorful, and perfect for a quick bite when you're on the go. One fun and unique thing you'll spot all over Sri Lanka are mobile bakeries, locally known as chumpan. You'll usually hear them before you see them. They play music to announce their arrival, often Beethoven's Für Elise. These little vans go around neighborhoods selling freshly baked buns and pastries. If you hear that sound, definitely flag one down and grab a treat. My favorite from these mobile bakeries is the kibula banis or sugar bun, a soft, slightly sweet bun topped with crunchy sugar crystals. It's simple but so good, especially with a hot cup of Ceylon tea. I highly recommend trying it at least once during your trip. Lastly, one thing you'll definitely notice about Sri Lankan food in general is that the servings are huge. A local once told me that it's because some Sri Lankans only eat once a day, so when they do, they eat a lot. I don't know if that's true for everyone, but it definitely explains why most of my meals could have easily fed 2 people. These are some of the best experiences I had in Sri Lanka. I'll talk about them more in my upcoming video, so stay tuned if you're planning your own trip. Ride the scenic train and watch it pass over the iconic Nine Arches bridges. It is known as one of the most beautiful train rides in the world, and most people do it from Kandy to Ella or vice versa. Hike Sigiriya Rock Fortress or nearby Pidurangala Rock. I did the sunrise hike and it was magical. Go on a wild safari. See elephants in the wild, and if you're lucky, even leopards. Chill or surf at the beach. Depending on the season, visit the south or east coast for the best beach experience. Wander around Gal Fort, a charming colonial town with lots of history and beautiful architecture. Take a Sri Lankan cooking class. Learn how to make curry from scratch and eat it after. Visit a tea plantation. Learn about Ceylon tea, how it's made, and try picking tea leaves by yourself. Explore the cultural triangle. This includes ancient cities like Anuradhapura, Polonnaruwa, and Sigiriya, with temples, stupas, and ruins that go back thousands of years. Go hiking in the hill country. Trek up Little Adams Peak in Ella, or try a section of the Pico Trail, a new long-distance hiking route through tea plantations, villages, and mountain paths. It has 22 stages and you can do as little or as much as you like. Sri Lanka is one of the most affordable countries I've been to, especially if you're traveling solo. Here's a quick breakdown of what you might expect to spend. For accommodations, you can find budget guest houses and hostels starting from 10 to 15 US dollars or around 3,000 to 4,500 rupees per night. Most of the places I stayed at were under $13, which are clean, spacious rooms, often with breakfast included. If you want more comfort or AC, expect to pay around 5,000 rupees. For food, a local meal at a small restaurant or eatery usually costs around 150 to 3 US dollars which is roughly 450 to 900 rupees. In more touristy places like Ella or Sigiriya, expect to pay around 1,500 to 2,400 rupees, which is about 5 to 8 US dollars per meal in restaurants geared towards foreigners. Street food and bakery snacks like samosas and buns are super affordable too. Many cost just 150 rupees or about 50 cents. Public transport in Sri Lanka is incredibly cheap and fairly easy to navigate. For buses, long-distance non-AC rides usually cost around 180 rupees for an hour and about 800 rupees for a 5-hour ride. I also took an AC bus from Matara to Colombo for just 1,050 rupees. Tuk-tuks are great for short trips. Just make sure to agree on the price before you hop in. Most short rides cost around 200 to 500 rupees, and for longer distances like Tambula to Sigiriya, I was charged around 1,800 to 2,000 rupees. Train travel is scenic and affordable. I booked a first-class reserved seat from Nano Oya to Ella for 2,500 rupees. For shorter routes, it's even cheaper. My second-class unreserved ticket from Ella to Haputale cost just 150 rupees. Entrance fees vary a lot depending on where you go. Major historical sites like Pulo Narua can cost up to 9,000 rupees or 30 US dollars. That was actually the most expensive ticket I paid for during my trip. I also hired a tuk-tuk for 4 hours to go around Pulo Narua, which cost me 5,000 rupees because it was Poson Poya. One of my favorite experiences was the jeep safari to Hurulu Eco Park. There were 4 of us from the hostel and we paid 6,000 rupees per person. That already included everything: entrance fee, jeep rental, driver, and taxes. For the laundry, for most of my trip, I did my own laundry in my room since I usually stayed at least 2 nights in each place. The only time I had laundry done was in Ella, where the homestay family was so kind. They offered to do it for me and I paid 500 rupees per kilo, which is just a little over $150. Before my trip, I did a lot of reading about Sri Lanka. I came across several articles calling it best place for solo female travel in 2024 and that it is very safe, and honestly, I was a little skeptical. But after spending 4 weeks in Sri Lanka, moving around alone and mostly taking public buses, I can say that yes, Sri Lanka is generally safe even for solo female travelers. The people are incredibly kind. I've been telling everyone that ever since I arrived. Personally, I felt that people in the north, east, and central highlands were especially warm and welcoming compared to what I experienced in the south. And I also felt safer in those regions. Of course, everyone's experience can vary, but that was mine. Here are some of the safety tips I can share from my trip. First is dress modestly, especially when visiting temples and rural areas. I know a lot of people say how you dress shouldn't affect how you are treated, and I totally agree. But Sri Lanka is a conservative country, and as visitors, it's important to respect the local culture and try to blend in. Most of the time, I wore long dresses with a light cover-up to cover my shoulders and back. Or if I was wearing something sleeveless, I'd throw on a kimono or shawl. It's not just about following dress codes for temples. It also helped me feel more comfortable when walking around smaller towns or taking public transport. Avoid walking alone late at night in isolated areas. There were times I had to step out to get food after dark, but I stayed on well-lit main roads and avoided quiet alleys. And in some areas known to have elephants roaming at night, always follow local advice. Sadly, there have been incidents that were not always reported widely, where both locals and tourists were harmed by wild elephants, so take that seriously. Don't overshare personal details. Tuk-tuk drivers and restaurant staff often ask friendly questions. Where are you from? First time in Sri Lanka? Are you alone? Where are you staying? I usually said yes, I was alone, but that I was meeting colleagues in Kandy, which is true, but it also helps make you sound less vulnerable. When asked where I was staying, I'd keep it vague, like, somewhere nearby, I forgot the name. Next, keep valuables secure on buses and trains. Just like in any country, keep your bag closed and zipped. Don't hesitate to ask locals for help. They really are incredibly friendly. For example, in Anuradhapura, I was looking forward to catch the bus to Wilpatu Junction. A local saw me looking around, came over, and pointed me in the right direction. Also, even though people in Sri Lanka are kind, don't let your guard down completely. Stay cautious. When I met my Sri Lankan colleagues and told them how nice everyone has been, they reminded me, yes, but not everyone is like that. And they are right, so it's always best to stay alert. Sri Lanka is one of the most rewarding destinations for solo travelers. It's budget-friendly, welcoming, and so diverse for such a small island. Whether you're after adventure, culture, food, or just a scenic place to slow down, you'll find it in Sri Lanka. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell so you don't miss my next uploads. And if you have any questions about traveling to Sri Lanka, drop them in the comments. I'd love to help. Thanks for watching and see you on the next adventure.